What I'm going to try to do with this video is go in depth on the processes at the start. We're going to talk about stamping our metal and annealing and such as that. Okay, we're going to start out from the very beginning. We kind of skipped over this, didn't touch on it. Okay, whenever you're making a pendant or such, now 24 gauge works real good. Now if you have real small pendants, you could use 26. I'd just use 24 all the way around unless I'm going to do some stamping details. Now then you need at least 22 gauge. You're going to need a block to stamp on. Now you get a 4x4 block at least 3/4 of an inch thick. Now if you noticed, I've wrote stamp on this side, and the reason for that is if I do some hammered metal, I don't want to hammer on the side that I'm going to stamp on. You might not can see them, but there's little dings and stuff where I've made hammered silver or copper, and occasionally you miss. You want a smooth surface so that you don't cause any other problems with your metal. Okay, your stamps. Now as far as you're going to need a grade stamp, both of these are sterling silver. This one says 925, and it's got this curve in it. This is made for stamping inside of a ring. Now I just like the one that's written out, and it's best if you have a block to hold your stamp square. When you use a block, make sure that your block is flat on your plate, not leaning over onto your stamping block there. And a brass hammer works good. It doesn't take much. Make sure you hold it in place and just give it a good tap, and that's plenty enough to do it. Now if you have a maker's mark, you'll want to stamp it at the same time, same way. Just put it up there, make sure it's flat, and give it a mark. Okay, and that's all it takes. Now that part's done. But as you can see, and you can see how the light reflects on the piece, you can tell it's not even. Okay, that's where this other block comes in handy. You could hit it with a rawhide hammer, but the problem with that, if you hit it at an angle, it's going to bend because it's going to compress that. Even though this hammer is soft, it'll compress it a little bit. So you put your piece under there and just give it a good whack, and for good measure, flip it over, give it a good whack, and that should get your piece nice and flat. So now we have this piece. Now if you don't have dead soft metal, you can anneal it, and the way that you do that is, annealing is whenever you soften the metal. If you flux up your piece and you take your torch and you heat it up, and like I say in my other videos, that flux, once it gets to 1100 degrees, usually that's warm enough to anneal your piece properly. So once your flux clears up good, take your piece, drop it in cold water real quick. That'll make it dead soft, and then it'll be easier to stamp. And always be aware too, when you're stamping, make sure your stamp's going to be underneath where your project's going to be, because if you don't, you can see this shows up here because it doesn't take much of a hit on 24 gauge to actually show kind of an impression behind, and you don't want this in an area to where it's going to be visible. So you would want this located underneath some design features, your cabochon or whatever. Okay, now I've already taken and soldered this together, because in this video what we're going to talk about is cleaning up this solder joint. It doesn't look like there's all that much solder, and a lot of people are more concerned with just the outside, but you need to know that you need to clean up the solder joint on the inside. Now if you've ever noticed, or if you're new to it, either way, this solder joint will hold it away from your cabochon. Plus it makes it really hard to burnish this in when you're ready to set that stone and you're bending this top. It makes it super hard to get a good fit, so you'll always have a little bump right there. So what we're going to do, I'm going to use a rotary tool. Now you can use sandpaper on a dowel or or just sandpaper. It'd be better if it's on something stiff. But I'm going to take and I'm just going to clean this up inside of here. We're not so much worried about the shape. And it'd be better if I could use more light, but if I do, my camera doesn't work good. A Dremel tool works good too. Now I'm going to keep working at this and working at this until it looks like that I don't have any in there. Now, on the other side, on this outside, it's easy enough. I can take this and put it on this dowel right here. And that gives me a firm surface to work on. And I'm just going to clean this up until it's completely smooth. I don't want any hump on either side, and so I want to pay particular attention to it. Now also, if you notice, this plate I was working on has a little bit of marker on it. Now you might not think that's any kind of problem, but I can tell you by experience that when you flux that up there, the flux is not going to touch where that marker is, and you're liable to end up with a fire scale problem. But just a little denatured alcohol on here, and that'll clean this off, because I can put it in a pickle a lot of times and it doesn't come off. Now I've got the biggest majority of this off. What I do is whenever I pickle it during the process, it'll take the rest off. But understand that your plate has to be clean. All your pieces have to be clean and free of oil and any kind of dirt or markers on it. Okay, I hope this short video helps you with the soldering. I want you to be aware of the fact, though, the solder doesn't have to build up on the outside of your piece in order to be strong. It's going to solder in the thickness of that metal, and that's plenty enough when you solder correctly to hold your piece together. So remember, clean that down good. I'll be doing some more quick ones. Maybe the next one will be on a hand roll mill, little tool you can build yourself. Also, if you want to learn a little bit more, there's a Facebook group, Jewelry Design and Techniques. If you become a member there, we do a lot of live feeds. I do live feeds, and some of the other members do. You can ask any questions, and we can help you out with just about anything. So have fun soldering.